I always believed that love had unspoken rules, boundaries that didn't need to be written or spoken aloud. You just knew them. You felt them in the way you looked at your partner, in the way you held their hand absent-mindedly while watching TV, in the way you always made sure to text them when you'd be home late. Love was built on those little moments, the quiet ones, the ones no one else saw. But what I saw that night at the bar made me question everything I thought I understood about love. About trust. About her. It wasn't some dramatic, soap opera-style discovery where I caught Delilah in bed with another man. No, it was something quieter. Something worse. Because when someone cheats behind your back, at least they have the decency to pretend they still care. What she did that night was different. She didn't even bother to hide it. We had been together for 8 years. Married for 5. Our life wasn't perfect, but whose is? We had routines, inside jokes, shared memories that spanned nearly a decade. I thought we were solid. I thought she was happy, but I guess the signs were there all along. Looking back, I realized now that the shift had been happening for months. It was subtle, so subtle that I ignored it. The late nights at work that started happening more often. The way she'd laugh at texts but never say who they were from. The way she'd brush me off when I reached for her, saying she was tired or had a headache. I chalked it up to stress. Life had been busy. We were just in a rough patch. But that night at the bar? That's when I knew. That's when I saw the truth, not through secret messages or lipstick on a collar, but in the way she looked at another man. The beginning of the end. It started as an ordinary Friday night. Delilah had mentioned earlier in the week that her office was celebrating a co-worker's promotion. She wanted me to come with her. I wasn't thrilled. I never really fit in with her work friends, and office parties weren't my scene, but she insisted. It'll be fun, she said. You never come out with us. Looking back, I should have questioned why she was so insistent. I should have seen the red flags in the way she made sure I was coming, but I had no reason to doubt her. Not yet. So, like a fool, I went. The bar was one of those sleek, modern places, dim lighting, overpriced drinks, the kind of place where people went to be seen. The music was loud, the air buzzing with energy. I saw her work friends scattered around the space, laughing, drinking, already deep into their night. And then I saw her, Delilah. She was standing near the bar, drink in hand, smiling in a way that sent a sinking feeling straight into my gut. I knew that smile. It wasn't the polite, social smile she gave coworkers. It wasn't even the warm, genuine smile she had for me on good days. No, this was different. This was the smile she used to give me when we first started dating. The one that said, I like the way you look at me. Only, she wasn't looking at me. She was looking at him. I didn't recognize him at first, just another guy in a sea of suits and cocktail glasses. But the way she leaned in when he spoke, the way she touched his arm when she laughed, the way he looked at her, like they had a secret no one else was in on, that was what caught my attention. I walked over, my heart pounding in my chest. I wasn't even angry yet. More confused than anything. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe I was misreading things. But the moment Delilah saw me, I knew. She froze, just for a fraction of a second. A flicker of something crossed her face before she quickly covered it with a bright, casual smile. Oh, hey. There you are, she said, like I was some acquaintance she had almost forgotten about. The guy next to her didn't even flinch. He just looked at me, expression unreadable, like he wasn't surprised I was there at all. Like he knew something I didn't. I shook his hand when she introduced him. Josh. Just a coworker. Just a coworker. I tried to play it cool, standing next to her, watching as the conversation continued. But the longer I stood there, the more I saw it, subtle things I should have caught sooner. The way her body angled toward him, not me. The way she laughed just a little too hard at his jokes. The way she touched his arm lightly, as if testing the waters. It was the kind of behavior you might overlook at first. The kind that could be brushed off as friendly. But when you've loved someone for as long as I loved her, you know the difference. She wasn't just being friendly. She was testing how far she could go. The moment it became clear, I told myself to calm down, to not assume the worst. Maybe she was just tipsy. Maybe she was caught up in the excitement of the night. But then it happened. Josh leaned in, just a little too close, whispered something in her ear. And instead of pulling away, instead of laughing it off, instead of even acknowledging I was standing right there, she smirked. Not a nervous smile. Not a friendly chuckle. A smirk. Like she liked whatever he had said. Like I wasn't even in the room. And that was the moment. That was the moment I realized I wasn't misreading anything. That was the moment I knew my wife, my Delilah, had already crossed the line. And my response? Let's just say, No one in that bar saw it coming. I stood there, frozen in time, feeling the ground shift beneath me. It was surreal, like watching my own life play out on a screen, except I wasn't the main character anymore. I was the extra, the afterthought. The smirk. That damn smirk. It burned itself into my brain like a scar I knew I'd never get rid of. It wasn't the smirk of a guilty woman who had been caught. It wasn't even the smirk of someone who cared that I was standing right there, witnessing it all. No, it was something worse. It was the smirk of someone who enjoyed the game. I had two options in that moment. I could have caused a scene, demanded an explanation, thrown my drink in her face, challenged this Josh guy to a fight like some testosterone-fueled idiot. But that wasn't me. That was never me. I wasn't going to be the fool who let his emotions take over in a public setting, who let them both walk away later painting me as the crazy husband who lost his mind over nothing. No, I was going to be smart. So, I smiled. I took a slow sip of my drink, my eyes never leaving hers. I saw the flicker of confusion in her face when I didn't react the way she expected. She thought I'd lash out, get jealous, beg her for answers. She was waiting for a reaction so she could control the narrative. I wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. Instead, I turned to Josh and gave him the most casual, almost amused look I could muster. So, I said, how long have you two been sleeping together? Silence. The conversation around us didn't stop. People kept drinking, laughing, completely unaware of the quiet explosion happening in our little corner of the bar. But between the three of us, everything went still. Josh's jaw tensed. He didn't look shocked, which was interesting. Delilah, though, she blinked, her smirk faltering for just a fraction of a second before she let out a forced laugh. Oh, come on, Lowell, she said, rolling her eyes. Don't be ridiculous. I nodded. Yeah, you're right. It would be ridiculous, wouldn't it? A wife openly flirting with a coworker while her husband stands 3 feet away? That'd be crazy. I swirled my drink in my glass, letting the ice clink against the sides. So tell me, Delilah, how ridiculous am I being? Josh cleared his throat, looking uncomfortable now. Good. I wanted him to be uncomfortable. I wanted him to feel what I was feeling in that moment. We're just friends, Delilah said quickly. Too quickly. You're overreacting. I tilted my head, pretending to consider that. Huh, I said. Overreacting. Right. So, if I asked you to hand me your phone right now, you'd have no problem with that, right? I watched her expression shift, just a flicker, barely there, but I caught it. The tightening of her lips. The way her fingers gripped the stem of her wine glass a little too hard. Josh glanced at her, then at me, as if suddenly realizing he was standing on thin ice. Hey, man, he said, lifting his hands in surrender, I don't want any trouble. Trouble? I repeated, letting out a dry chuckle. Oh, buddy, you're already in trouble. You just don't know it yet. Delilah turned to him sharply. Josh, don't engage. There it was. Don't engage. Not don't lie. Not don't let my husband make a fool of himself. Just don't engage. It told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't scared that I'd get the wrong idea. She was scared that Josh would say something stupid and ruin whatever story she was trying to spin. I downed the rest of my drink and set the glass down on the bar with a sharp clink. You know what? I said, pushing my chair back. I think I've heard enough. Lowell, wait. But I didn't wait. I turned and walked away, not bothering to look back. I didn't need to. I knew exactly what her expression would be: shock, maybe a little bit of guilt, but mostly frustration. Frustration that I wasn't playing into her hand. I stepped outside, the cool night air hitting me like a slap to the face. My heart was pounding, adrenaline coursing through my veins, but I kept my face neutral, kept my breathing steady. I wasn't going to fall apart here. Not yet. The drive home. I got in my car and just sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles turned white. I needed to think. I needed to process what had just happened. But mostly, I needed to figure out what the hell I was going to do next. Because one thing was clear. This wasn't just a one-time lapse in judgment. It wasn't harmless flirting. She had already crossed the line. And my response? My response was just getting started. I drove home in complete silence. No music, no radio, just the low hum of the engine and the occasional sound of tires rolling over uneven pavement. The city lights blurred past my windshield, neon signs flickering as if mocking me, as if daring me to lose control. But I wouldn't. Not yet. My mind raced, replaying every second of what had just happened. The way she smiled at him. The way she leaned in when he spoke. The way she smirked when she thought I wasn't looking. Don't engage, she had told him. She hadn't tried to deny anything. She had just wanted to control the situation. I let out a slow, controlled breath as I pulled into our driveway. The house was dark. I hadn't given Delilah a chance to follow me home yet. I knew she'd stay at the bar for a while, trying to figure out how to spin this in her favor. That was fine. That was good. It gave me time to think. I walked inside, locking the door behind me. The house smelled the same as it always did. A mix of the candles Delilah always insisted on burning and the faint trace of her perfume lingering in the air. It made my stomach turn. I moved on autopilot, loosening my tie, unbuttoning the top of my shirt. I poured myself a drink, but I didn't sip it right away. I just sat there, staring at the glass, feeling the weight of everything settle onto my shoulders. What was I supposed to do now? I wasn't the kind of man who exploded in rage or made impulsive decisions. But I wasn't stupid either. Delilah thought she was playing chess, but she had underestimated me. I picked up my phone. No messages from her. Of course not. She was probably still at the bar, trying to act normal, pretending nothing had happened. Maybe she was even laughing about it with Josh, telling him I was being paranoid. I tightened my grip on the glass. If that was how she wanted to play this, then fine. Let's play. She comes home. It was past midnight when I finally heard the key turn in the lock. I stayed on the couch, my body relaxed, my expression unreadable. I wasn't going to give her the satisfaction of seeing me shaken. She stepped inside hesitantly, like she was testing the air. Her heels clicked against the floor as she walked toward the living room. I didn't look up. Lowell. I finally turned my head, taking my time before meeting her gaze. Delilah. My voice was calm. Too calm. I saw the slight twitch in her expression when she realized she had no idea what I was thinking. She set her purse down on the table, shifting uncomfortably. You left so suddenly earlier. I didn't get a chance to. To what? I interrupted, leaning back against the couch. To explain? To gaslight me? To tell me I was overreacting again? She exhaled sharply, rolling her eyes. You were overreacting. You embarrassed me, Lowell. Accusing me like that in front of my coworkers. I let out a slow chuckle, shaking my head. That's what you're upset about? That I embarrassed you? She crossed her arms, her nails tapping against her elbow. Josh is just a friend. You need to stop looking for problems where there aren't any. I tilted my head slightly, studying her. She was good. She had rehearsed this. But she didn't know that I wasn't playing the role of the insecure husband tonight. All right, I said simply. She blinked. What? I said all right, I repeated. If you say Josh is just a friend, I'll believe you. She hesitated, narrowing her eyes. You will. I nodded. Sure. But you wouldn't mind showing me your phone then, right? The air between us shifted instantly. Her fingers twitched by her side, and for a brief second, I saw something flicker across her face. Guilt. Fear. Why would I show you my phone? She asked carefully. I shrugged. Because if there's nothing to hide, then there's nothing to hide. She let out a forced laugh. Come on, Lowell, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to prove my innocence just because you had a bad night. Bad night. I repeated, raising an eyebrow. She sighed, rubbing her temple like I was exhausting her. You're being controlling. This isn't healthy. There it was. The defensive pivot. When a liar can't argue against the facts, they change the subject. Make it about you. I stood up slowly, setting my empty glass down on the table. All right, I said again, my voice smooth. No phone. No problem. Her posture relaxed slightly, thinking she had won. But she hadn't. I walked past her toward the stairs. Where are you going? She asked. I paused, glancing back at her with the faintest smile. To bed. I saw the confusion in her eyes. She wasn't expecting that. She was expecting me to keep pushing, to demand answers, to turn this into an argument she could use against me later. But I wasn't giving her the script she wanted. I was writing my own. The unraveling begins. That night, I didn't sleep much. I stared at the ceiling, listening to Delilah shift beside me in bed. She thought she had won. She thought this was over. But it wasn't. Because here's the thing about betrayal, it doesn't always happen in one explosive moment. Sometimes, it happens slowly. A smile held too long. A touch that lingers. A wife who comes home late and refuses to show her phone. I didn't need proof anymore. I already knew. The only question now was, what was I going to do about it? Lying next to Delilah in the darkness of our bedroom, I listened to her breathing slow, even, peaceful, like nothing had happened. Like she wasn't even slightly disturbed by the shift between us, the unspoken tension that thickened the air. I turned onto my side, staring at the faint glow of the moonlight filtering through the blinds. Sleep wasn't coming. My mind was a relentless storm, looping through every detail of the night, every word, every flicker of hesitation on her face. She knew she had been caught. Maybe not with undeniable proof, but in her heart, she knew I had seen something in that bar. And yet, here she was, sleeping soundly, not even tossing and turning from guilt. It made my stomach twist. I had always been the kind of man to believe in direct confrontation and honesty in handling things like an adult. But tonight had taught me something important. The person I had been, the trusting husband, the man who believed love was built on mutual respect, that version of me had been a fool. I needed a new approach. Around 3 a.m, I gave up on trying to sleep. I slid out of bed as quietly as possible, moving carefully so as not to wake her. I stood there for a moment, just looking at her. Her face was relaxed, lips slightly parted, hair sprawled across the pillow. I used to find her beautiful in moments like this, when she was completely unguarded. Now, all I felt was detachment. I left the room, walking downstairs into the dimly lit living room. I sat on the couch, phone in hand, thumb hovering over the screen. What was I looking for? Proof? A message? Some slip-up that would confirm what I already knew? No, I didn't need her phone. I needed something bigger, something that couldn't be twisted into paranoia or overreacting. I opened my laptop instead. It started with something simple. I searched for Josh. Just his name and the company they worked for. I expected to find a LinkedIn profile, maybe an old college article, just something to fill in the blanks. What I didn't expect was what I actually found. Josh wasn't just a coworker. He was her boss, a vice president at her company, and from what I could piece together, someone who had been rapidly climbing the ranks in the past 2 years. Suddenly, little things started clicking into place. The late-night emails, the urgent work meetings, the expensive gifts she had dismissed as company perks. I leaned back against the couch, staring at the screen. A part of me wanted to shut the laptop and pretend I hadn't seen any of this. But another part, the part that was growing colder by the second, knew this was exactly what I had been looking for. I needed to be smart, strategic. If Delilah had crossed the line, I needed to make sure I controlled the way this story ended. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. When she woke up the next morning, she found me in the kitchen, already dressed, sipping coffee like I hadn't just spent the past 5 hours pulling every piece of information I could find. "You're up early," she said, rubbing her eyes as she entered the room. I glanced up from my mug, giving her a small, unreadable smile. "Couldn't sleep," I said simply. She hesitated for a fraction of a second, then shrugged, heading toward the coffee pot. Normal. She was playing normal. But what she didn't realize, the game had already changed. I watched Delilah pour her coffee, moving through the kitchen like nothing had changed. Like she hadn't spent the previous night at a bar flirting with her boss. Like she hadn't lied to my face with that infuriating smirk. I wanted to feel something: anger, betrayal, even sadness. But all I felt was cold detachment. This was no longer a question of if she had crossed the line. It was now about how far. She took a sip of her coffee and finally glanced at me, her expression carefully neutral. "You went to bed late," she said casually. "Yeah," I replied, mirroring her tone. "Had some things to think about." She didn't ask what. Of course, she didn't. She was trying to act as if everything was normal, hoping I would let last night go. Hoping she could continue her game without consequences. I wasn't about to let that happen. I set my coffee down and stretched, making a point to check my watch. "I'm heading out for a bit." She looked up from her mug, surprised. "Oh? Where to?" I smiled, casual and unreadable. "Just some errands." She hesitated, as if debating whether to press further, but then nodded, returning to her coffee. "Okay. See you later." That was it. No questions. No curiosity about where I was going. No offer to come along. Not that I wanted her to. As I walked out the door, I didn't head toward any errands. Instead, I drove to a small cafe downtown, one I knew was far enough from our usual spots that I wouldn't run into anyone familiar. I needed a place to think, to plan, without the walls of our home suffocating me. I ordered a black coffee and sat near the window, staring out at the street while my mind pieced together the next steps. Last night, I had learned something important. Josh wasn't just a random coworker. He was her superior, which meant their relationship wasn't just inappropriate, it had power dynamics. That complicated things, but it also meant I had leverage. I needed to be sure. I needed evidence. So, I started small. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through Delilah's social media. Nothing obvious, nothing incriminating. She was too smart for that. But I wasn't looking for blatant confessions, I was looking for patterns. And then, I found it. A picture from 2 months ago. A company event. Delilah was in the center, surrounded by her colleagues, smiling at the camera. And standing just slightly behind her, almost out of frame, was Josh. The way he looked at her. It wasn't the look of a boss posing for a casual group photo. It was the look of a man who thought he had a claim on something. Or someone. I zoomed in, analyzing every detail. His stance, his positioning. The way Delilah's body angled slightly toward him, even unconsciously. It was subtle, but it was there. I kept scrolling, digging deeper, checking tags, comments, anything that could tell me more. And then I saw something that made my stomach drop. A comment. From Josh. One of the best nights ever. Can't wait for the next one. It was under a harmless photo, a sunset view from a rooftop bar, posted a few weeks ago. It had dozens of comments, mostly generic praises about the view. But Josh's stood out. Because Delilah had replied. You always know how to make nights unforgettable. Winking face. I set my phone down, exhaling slowly. She had been reckless. Maybe she had gotten comfortable. Maybe she had assumed I'd never notice. She was wrong. I checked the timestamp. The picture was from a Friday. I tried to remember where she had been that night. Had she told me she was working late? Out with friends? I needed to cross-reference, to line up the pieces. I took another sip of my coffee, my mind sharpening with a clarity I hadn't felt in days. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It was confirmation. And now, I had a decision to make. Would I confront her outright? Demand an explanation? No. That wasn't good enough. I needed to control the narrative. So, I made a call. Not to Delilah. Not to Josh. But to someone who could give me what I needed. Someone who knew how to find the truth. Because if Delilah thought she could keep playing this game, she was about to realize that I was always 5 moves ahead. The phone rang twice before a familiar voice answered. Lowell? Didn't expect to hear from you this early. Everything all right? It was my old college friend, Eric. We hadn't talked much in the past year. Life had gotten in the way, but Eric had a particular skill set that made him the perfect person to call. He worked in cybersecurity and knew his way around information better than most. If there was something to be found, Eric could find it. I need a favor, I said, keeping my voice steady. A pause. Then, what kind of favor? I glanced around the cafe, lowering my voice slightly. I need to know if someone's been keeping secrets. Specifically, my wife. There was silence on the other end. Then a low whistle. Damn. That's not what I expected. You sure you want to go down this road? I'm already on it, I said. Another pause. Then, all right. What am I looking for? Phone records, messages, emails. Anything she might have deleted. And if there are any, transactions I should know about. Eric sighed. Lowell, you know this isn't exactly legal. I closed my eyes for a second, then exhaled. I know. I just need the truth. There was a long pause before Eric finally spoke again. All right. Give me a few days. I'll see what I can find. I hung up and stared at my coffee, the steam curling upward. I felt no guilt, no hesitation. If Delilah had nothing to hide, there wouldn't be anything to find. But if she did, then I'd have my answer. I left the cafe and drove aimlessly for a while, letting my thoughts settle. When I finally pulled into our driveway, I saw Delilah's car parked in its usual spot. A small part of me wondered if she had spent the morning texting Josh, warning him that I was acting weird. I stepped inside, and there she was, sitting on the couch with her laptop open. She looked up at me and smiled, too bright, too rehearsed. Hey, you're back. How are your errands? I gave her a small, unreadable smile. Fine. She studied me for a second, as if trying to gauge what I was thinking. Then she stretched, feigning nonchalance. So, I was thinking we should go out tonight. Maybe dinner, just the two of us. I nearly laughed. She was trying to regain control. Trying to redirect the energy, make me second-guess myself. But I wasn't playing that game. Sure, I said smoothly. She blinked. Really? Why not? I shrugged, walking past her. It's been a while since we had a nice night out. She relaxed slightly, smiling. Yeah, exactly. Let's just enjoy each other, okay? I nodded, walking toward the stairs. Sounds perfect. What she didn't know was that I already had an exit strategy. I wasn't going to be the husband who begged for answers. I wasn't going to fight for someone who didn't respect me. I was going to let her think everything was fine. And then, when she least expected it, I was going to leave her in the ruins of her own lies. The dinner plan was an illusion. Delilah thought she was regaining control, pulling me back into the routine of our marriage, smoothing over the cracks with forced intimacy. She had no idea that I was already setting the stage for something she wouldn't see coming. I dressed as if nothing was wrong, combed my hair, put on my watch like a man getting ready for a regular date night. But in my pocket, my phone buzzed. "Eric, got something. Call me when you can." I slipped my phone back into my pocket, keeping my expression neutral as I walked downstairs. Delilah was in the kitchen, checking herself in the reflection of the microwave door. She had put effort into her appearance tonight. Her hair was styled the way I used to love, her perfume, the same one she wore on our anniversary dinners, hung faintly in the air. She turned when she heard me, flashing that bright, well-rehearsed smile. "Wow," she said, walking up to me, running a hand over the sleeve of my jacket. "You clean up nice." I looked at her, really looked at her, and for the first time, I didn't feel warmth. I didn't feel love. I felt nothing. "Ready?" I asked. She nodded, grabbing her purse. "Let's go." We drove in silence for the first few minutes, but Delilah, unable to sit comfortably in the quiet, started filling the space with chatter. "I was thinking Italian tonight," she said, glancing over at me. "Or maybe that steakhouse we haven't been to in a while. What do you think?" "Whatever you want," I said smoothly. I felt her eyes flick toward me, studying me, but I kept my focus on the road. "You seem quiet tonight," she said lightly. "Still thinking about last night?" I smirked. "Should I be?" She let out a small, nervous laugh. "Of course not. I mean, I know you were upset, but I hope you're not still letting it ruin our night." She was good, but I was better. I pulled into the restaurant parking lot and parked, turning to her with an easy expression. "Not at all. Tonight's about us, right?" She smiled, relieved, and leaned over to kiss me. I let her. Because tonight wasn't just about us. Tonight was the night I let her believe she had won. Inside, the restaurant was dimly lit, intimate. The kind of place where couples went to reconnect, to celebrate. Delilah ordered wine, like she always did, and smiled at me across the table. "This feels nice," she said. "Just us." I nodded. "Yeah, just us." I could see the tension leaving her shoulders. She thought she had pulled me back in, that I had let go of whatever silly suspicions I had. I played my role perfectly, nodding along to her stories about work, laughing in all the right places. But inside, I was waiting for the moment. Because I had checked my phone in the bathroom earlier. And what Eric had sent me. It was exactly what I needed. After dinner, as we drove home, she reached over and placed a hand on my thigh. It was meant to be reassuring, to tell me, "See? Everything is fine." I let her. But as we pulled into the driveway, I finally spoke. "Hey," I said, putting the car in park. "Why don't we go inside and open a bottle of wine?" She looked pleasantly surprised. "That sounds perfect." Perfect indeed. We stepped inside, and as she went to grab glasses, I casually pulled my phone out, scrolling through Eric's message one last time. "Eric, Lowell, I'm sending you a folder. It's not just texts. There are transactions. Hotel receipts. Everything you need. Call me when you see it." Hotel receipts. I already knew what I was about to see. I just needed to decide how I wanted to use it. Delilah walked back in, holding 2 glasses. "You know," she said with a teasing smile, "I was thinking maybe tonight we could." She trailed off, biting her lip, letting the suggestion hang in the air. A final attempt at distraction, but I wasn't playing anymore. I took a slow sip of wine and looked at her over the rim of my glass. "Delilah," I said, my voice calm, steady, unreadable. "Yeah," she asked, still smiling. I set my glass down. "When were you going to tell me about the hotels?" The moment the words left my mouth, Delilah's smile flickered. It was subtle, just a brief twitch at the corner of her lips, but I saw it. The mask cracked. She blinked. "What hotels?" I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly, as if I were simply tired, as if I wasn't about to dismantle the illusion she had been so carefully maintaining. "Come on, Delilah," I said, my tone light, almost amused. "Let's not insult each other." Her fingers tightened around the stem of her wine glass. "Lowell, I don't know what you're talking about." I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen. The folder Eric had sent me was open, and staring back at me were images of her, not in bed, not doing anything explicit, but entering hotels on multiple occasions, always with him. "Josh, her boss. Look familiar?" I asked, tilting the screen toward her. Her breath hitched. The color drained from her face. Where did you get that? That's not really important, is it? I leaned forward, resting my elbows on the table. What is important is that this, I gestured between us, is over. She opened her mouth, probably to deny it, to spin a new story, but I held up a hand. No, don't. We're past that now. Silence. For the first time, I saw something real in her expression, not just guilt, but panic. She knew. She had lost. I stood up, stretching as if I had just finished a long, exhausting day. I already spoke to a lawyer. I continued, keeping my voice measured. Papers will be ready soon. I suggest you don't fight it, Delilah. You won't like what happens if you do. Her lips parted, but no words came out. And don't worry, I added, giving her a small smile. I won't ruin your reputation. I won't call your job. I won't blast this online. I'll walk away clean, and so will you. I paused. But you'll have to live with knowing that you lost me. And trust me, that's going to sting a lot more than whatever fun you thought you were having. She swallowed hard, her eyes glistening. Lowell, I shook my head. No, Delilah, you made this choice. And with that, I walked away. 3 months later, I sat on the balcony of my new apartment, watching the city lights twinkle below. The divorce had gone through faster than I expected. Delilah didn't fight it. I think she knew she had no ground to stand on. I had left the house to her. I didn't want it. It was tainted now. I didn't want to wake up every day in the place where I had been lied to. And honestly, I felt good, better than I had in years. I had reconnected with old friends, focused on my work, started going to the gym again, not as a distraction, but because, for the first time in a long time, I actually cared about me. I thought about Delilah sometimes, but not in a way that hurt. More like a distant memory of someone I used to know. I had heard she had quit her job a month after we finalized the divorce. Maybe things hadn't worked out with Josh the way she had expected. Didn't matter. What mattered was I had walked away with my dignity, my self-respect, and a future that was entirely my own. I took a sip of my drink, smiling as the cool night air brushed against my face. For the first time in years, I was free. And it felt damn good.